Well, there you all are, and thank you for coming into the Six Screens Telenetwork. My name's Rick Farron, and this is Sunday edition of Six Screens. It's a little bit different on Sunday. As you can see, we get into the scriptures of the earliest program we just had did. They talked about Noah's Ark, and boy, you might want to catch that if you missed it. And we talk about theological things as well. But we have a program right now that is quite fascinating. It deals with the idea of what was it like being in the Watchtower. Now, we hope that some people can call in and share their story with us. So if you're one of them listening on to this program on YouTube, or you're listening in via the internet, on Facebook, or on our radio network, by all means, what you can do is call in. I'll pull a telephone number up here in a second as soon as Anne-Marie comes on, and I'll get rid of this last banner. But anyways, let's bring Anne-Marie on. Hello, Anne-Marie.
Hello, my friend Rick. Happy Six Screen Sunday.
Well, thank you, Anne-Marie. Well, we don't have anyone scheduled. I do have Steve. He wants to come in a little bit from New Zealand. So in a while, I told him, he's on just a few weeks ago. We can't have the whole program, but he wants to share some stuff with us. So in a while, we'll bring Steve on. But everything going well for you?
Oh, everything's fine, nice and calm, grateful for the Lord's blessings.
Well, you had a good program last night. I'll tell you that. That fella calling in, Matthew from South Africa. Boy, he had a lot to say. He's quite the man.
Yeah, I just love the callers. The callers always, they make the show. You say it all the time, and it's so true.
Well, wasn't it nice to hearing from that Ibonda? Boy, I'll tell you, she was something else too. She was amazing. She really wanted to let people know where she stood when it comes to the Watchtower, huh?
Absolutely. That's why I try to keep track of everybody, because people just amaze me. Everything that people think of to say, they might not think it means much, but it really does. They add so much, and God only knows who they're going to help when they're talking, or later in the archives when someone comes on and listens to it and hears the show for the first time.
Yeah, what they were saying, in fact, a couple of people last night brought up on your program, Anne-Marie, they really love your program. And that Yvonne, she says that you're helping so many people. I've told you that before too. Sometimes it's hard to know that, but you are helping a lot of people. And what I find is good with the Six Screens programs are people being able to call in and voice their thoughts. And that's what they were saying last night on your program, that they like that venue. They can really hear people up front and close in real time. And, that's not the case with all of the information about Jehovah's Witnesses online by ex-witnesses. So it's a good platform, and it really is unique in the sense that people are getting information in real time. And that in fact, even last night, I don't know if you listened to it or not, we had Stephanie Lynn Carson on. And some of the stuff that she was talking about last night on her program, if you were one of Jehovah's Witnesses listening into that, you'd have to take heed. She was talking about things that I've never even heard before. But she was talking about satanic ritual abuse in the Watchtower, and actually how children in the Watchtower are being murdered. And, she's trying to draw light to that. And of course, you got a lot of naysayers last night on the program, and it was kind of discouraging. But her and her husband, both, Brian, was on with her. And Brian was also abused as a child not in the Watchtower. He wasn't a Jehovah's Witness, but he was abused as a child himself. And they were both talking about, what churches do in their basements. And even Stephanie was saying what Jehovah's Witnesses do in the Kingdom Halls and what have you. We know that. But she was talking about actual murders that she had some documented evidence of it up in Maine of a witness that was a young baby that was ritually killed in the Jehovah's Witness religion, according to what she was saying last night. So it was fascinating. And it was quite the program. I'll tell you, it had me on the edge of my seat. But anyways, Anne-Marie, let's see if we can't find somebody out there today that would like to tell this story. If you're listening into the if you're listening into the program today and you'd like to tell your story of being in the Watchtower, hey, good or bad, we'll take it. We'll take anything, Anne Marie and I will, on a Sunday afternoon. So why don't you speak up if you'd like to say hello to us? I'm going to put the telephone number up too, Anne Marie. So you come on in and say hello to the audience. I'm not.
So many people, so many times, my brother, when somebody comes on to comment, they don't mean to, but it sparks something in them that makes them want to share what happened to me. I remember when this is what they did to me. And it's so important to, when you're ready, to be heard. But when it seems to be scheduled, I think a lot of people get tongue-tied. I know personally, I don't feel comfortable sharing my story, but then every once in a while there might be a glitch and I'll just like get diarrhea of the mouth, I call it emotional vomit, because we all have it inside of us and we're so used to keeping it all inside or burying it or acting like, oh, it wasn't that big a deal, or other people went through worse than I did. And they almost feel like their story isn't good enough or dramatic enough. And, oh, nobody would care. And it's just not true, because we all have a story. And no matter how common or how many commonalities there might be with others to our story, it's still a very personal, painful, lonely, hurting story. And this is why you have set aside this hour every other Sunday to give a window of opportunity, to give a venue, a platform by which they can speak. And again, it doesn't have to be an hour, it doesn't have to be half an hour, it could be 4 minutes. Sometimes if you just say one thing, it'll kind of open up a tiny little window in your brain. And maybe want to say, well, and then this happened, or because of that. And it starts to come slow sometimes. But sometimes people feel uncomfortable. They feel like they have to plan. So we just want to let everyone know, Rick and I want you all hearing to know your story matters. No matter how mundane you might think it is, it's not. No matter what, it is not mundane. It is not little. It is not trivial. It hurt you. It caused you pain. It stole from your mind and your emotions, your spirit, your soul, and oftentimes it stole from your life. It stole from your relationships. So don't ever think that whatever happened to you, whatever you remember, even if it takes 2 minutes to share, it matters. You matter. Your story, your experience, what you went through, what you're still enduring matters. Just want to throw that in.
Well, very good. No, it does matter, Anne Marie. And, you know what's really fascinating to me as well is these new ones that call in. Like last night, we had some new people on your program. And what's really now making me think is we should have grabbed those guys last night that Yvonne, and we should have also asked Matthew if they'd like to come on today. I got to start remembering that and see if we can get them to come on Sunday. It'd be good, because I'll tell you, Matthew from South Africa, he'd have quite the story to tell, and also the Yvonne woman as well. So on Saturday nights when we do have your program, I'm gonna make a note. We'll ask, hey, if anyone wants to come on. In fact, I can do it through all the programs on Saturday night and bring them on, because people love stories, Anne Marie. People love to hear about other people that have been involved with the Watchtower. And we've all been, hey, we're all brothers and sisters in a way, aren't we? Because we've all felt the same things. But I have to report, Anne Marie, I have to tell you, really, I was really excited last Sunday, a week ago today. And of course, I stopped in Pennsylvania. We were on the road. My wife and I, Susan, were coming back from Illinois. So we stopped in at Pennsylvania to see my father. He lives in Reading area. So we spent a day with him. And, I have 50 JW relatives down there. My sister and her children, nieces, nephews, all these people that are relatives of mine, and they're all settled in that little clan in Pennsylvania. And so they haven't spoken to me. I've been going there for a number of years, but no one's ever really said anything to me. But this time was really unique. In fact, we were so excited. Susan and I, as we were leaving my father's place, my nephew, actually, he'd be my niece's son. He'd be my great or grand, whatever you want to call him, nephew. And he's a Jehovah's Witness, but he spoke with us. He approached us and asked us how we were doing. Now that is unique. Now that is something that, I wasn't expecting that. I wasn't expecting that at all, but he approached us and asked us how we were and introduced himself and told us who he was and said he was going to the beach. He's a young man, about 6'3", 6'4", handsome young guy. I never met him. I mean, I never even saw him as a baby. And consequently, he spoke up. And then also, when my sister, who lives right next door, she didn't say anything to me when I was there. And I haven't spoken to her really for 20 years. And consequently, when we got home and I called my father the next day, she was with him and she spoke up and talked to me on the telephone. So something's going on in the witness. Something's going on in the witness world. Now, like I say, I've already had three of my Jehovah's Witness relatives contact me in the last few years. They've left. And so is something happening here? Are we going to get more and more people coming out? And if you're listening to this program and you have relatives, friends that are in the witness world, I think it's only a matter of time, Anne-Marie, where they'll start calling you up and wanting to talk with you. That's a possibility, right?
It's a possibility. So far, not one of them in almost 40 years, not one of them. But I know they have loving hearts, and I know you can't fool all the people all the time.
No. Well, let's put the old fish hook out there once again. I see we get a lot of people dialing in. Is there anybody out there that would love to come on and tell their story of being in the Watchtower? Go ahead and do it. In fact, I'll tell you something. I will give you a prize. If someone wants to come on, I will give you a nice prize. If someone wants to come on and tell their story, we got to put some bait out there. You know what I mean, Anne-Marie? Well, that sounds like Matthew.
How about we have the prize of getting the truth out there? How about that?
That's a good idea.
Are you thinking of coming out this way?
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great. That would be quite an adventure, sure. I don't know if that'll be practical, but that would be something to aspire to. Meet you all, yeah.
You care like sharing? Matthew, do you care like to share anything about your trek with the Watchtower? How you got involved? Were you born in? Were you sucked in? Were you tricked like a lot of us? Were you a true believer? Something woke you up? How did they treat you? You care like to share any of it?
Okay, well, thanks for that lead in, and I appreciate the help, because it would be great that, the testimony is useful and not necessarily covering same ground that you might have already done. I mean, I can see the community's got a tremendous amount of information, and I can see that the patterns match. So sometimes I wonder what sort of usefulness my testimony is going to make, other than to just verify what you already have. But I can start with, essentially, I wouldn't say born in, but enough to have been programmed in the way that I think that question is posed. I think you're wanting to know that because of, Bible book of stories and that imagery, which is very, very powerful psychology to a child and shapes the rest of the person's life. Am I right? That's why the question's posed.
Well, Matthew, your story is just as important as anybody else. And even if everybody say 10 or 20 people have the quote unquote same story, it's never really the same because it's different because each individual is different. And anytime you share anything, I hope that you won't need to or feel the need to critique it. Oh, well, so many people already said that, or this has already been covered. It's not about that. It's all about you, how it was for you, how it felt for you, what you went through, what it did to you, what you're going through today. Okay, is that okay with you, Matthew? And even if you just feel like
it's more than okay and very reassuring. Thank you, Anne-Marie.
no,
I have essentially, how do you change crystallized thinking? My thinking still, although you know one sees a bigger picture, my motive still is to take steps forwards towards ethics. That's what it always is. If there's something that I have done wrong, I've endeavored to say, right, there it is, transparently placed on the table. I'm in permanent repentance mode and bring out the information. Let's deal with it. Let's move on. That's what I have believed the religion was supposed to facilitate, but more than just a way of offloading one's guilt or
yeah,
what can I say? Yeah, I suppose guilt as outlines scripturally as to what the requirements are for some kind of spiritual growth or connection with supreme consciousness or God or Jehovah, as the Jehovah's Witnesses say. Yeah, I was an absolute believer in the process and had seen evidence of that in a genuine way with things like catharsis and deep, if you want to label it as mystical experiences or deep psychological experiences or however you want to frame it. I was seeing that working and very encouraged by that and seeing some very, very good results with that. I had connected with Linda James in my morning. I suppose it was her evening in her show, connected to, I believe, 6 screens, if I'm correct. I believe you all interconnected. And was just saying how, you know, there's 2 different narratives that goes on. There's a genuine narrative, and then there's a clandestine narrative, apparently, that works in the background, that stands behind the persons that are endeavoring to do things in the right way. So I look back on some of my assignments, and yes, though something like, I don't know, am I able to mention child abuse on the program without getting gonged out? Or do I have to change my words?
it's. Do you mind speaking a little closer to your microphone? Because as you're talking, you tend to get softer, and I want to hear.
Anne-Marie, how does that sound if I talk directly
sound
like
I
that?
can hear you. Oh wow, I can take the microphone away from up here now. You mentioned.
Is that better?
Are you? Hello. Did you hear my excitement? Yes. Like way better. I don't have to struggle to hear you.
Well, that's great. I'm struggling to hear you though, but.
Oh, that's my stupid phone. Nobody wants to hear me.
Okay.
We want to hear you.
Okay, I'll be very careful to try and hear when you talking with me, Anne-Marie. So you say that the sound is a lot better?
100%. You're
Okay,
rocking
good.
the house. So, Matthew, I want to ask you 2 things. You said 2 things that kind of perked at my ears that I never heard anyone say before. You said you felt like you had crystallized thinking, and I was hoping you would explain that. But before you explain that, the other thing you said, and I'm picturing the recruiting process, how they're so smooth and so loving and so kind, and they always seem to have an answer for everything. And you said something to the effect, if I heard you right, that it seems good on the outside, but behind that, it's something else. And I'm thinking it's manipulative mind control, and you don't even see it. Okay, so would you mind explaining in your own words what you mean by crystallized thinking and anything else? I'm listening.
crystallized thinking is thinking where you've done something out of such a habit that as one grows older, it just becomes second wind or second nature.
Automatic.
So it's automatic. So even if now there's an exposure on the harmful pathways that are in place, to try and undo that becomes very, very complex, you know, and to look at a blueprint of going, well, what is the proper human way of doing something that is not overriding our proper nature? What is that? It becomes quite a difficult thing to navigate, and I suppose that's where the best that we have within society is, you know, our philosophers and our psychologists that are licensed and peer reviewed and checking in on each other, and there's some kind of safety net to say, well, this is the best we've been able to research. This is the front line of what we've been able to research, or that we've been able to look back over, say, 140 years since William James, you know, who is heralded as not just a philosopher, but the first psychologist, going into things like religion and spirituality and our deeper nature, and saying, right, well, let's see if we can undo psychosis, or let's see if we can undo the various jams that are causing ills, not just to the individual, but to that individual circle as it widens out and affects the rest of the world, you know, as one big tribe. I don't know if that's a good start.
Well, no, that's a nice, complicated, analytical start. And for the layperson, it might be a little bit complicated to grasp. I do absolutely understand what you're like, a nuts and bolts person. So forgive me if I put it this way. I was one screwed up to the max person in the Watchtower, didn't know it, coming out. And people, thank God, pointed it out to me that basically, what the hell is wrong with you? One person asked if I was living under a rock for the past 30 years. I had nothing, no social skills, crystallized thinking, constantly apologizing, always looking for approval. I was a mess. Now, I did try to study psychology and therapy and what's wrong with me and how do I fix it. And you know what? It just got more and more confusing, and everything you says makes sense, but I'm nuts and bolts. Just give me the simple answer. Not you, but that's how I think. And I started with pay attention to my behavior, like when I get upset or hurt because somebody has put me down again, or made fun of me again, or told me something was wrong with me again, or made me feel like I was a piece of shit, or made me feel like I was stupid again. And it occurred to me, I'm going to start paying attention not to what was said or done or how it made me feel. I'm going to pay attention to my part in the situation. I basically had to be my own fixer. And I started realizing, okay, so-and-so said this or did this. How did I react? And if anybody did any of those things now, it wouldn't bother me. I would just say, well, that's their opinion. Oh, well, that does not define me. But I had to start by paying attention and realizing that's not okay, or their attitude or opinion does not define me. If I let it define me, it's really on me, and I just need to be aware of it. I didn't put myself down. I didn't say, how do I fix it? I believe you start by being aware. That's just me and my simplified ADD on crack, phenomenon. But I appreciate you explaining crystallized thinking. It's basically, we were trained, at least in Watchtower, because it is a cult, very powerful mind control cult. Everything is, rule number one, everything wrong is your fault.
Yeah.
Right? Did you ever get that?
Yeah.
Give me an example.
Absolutely.
Give us an example.
I'll give you an example. Sorry, did you say, can I give you an example? Is that your question?
It was absolutely, my brother Matthew. Would you give us an example of the unwritten rule in Watchtower? Anything wrong is your fault. I know.
Well,
it's funny.
well, here it is. We want absolute obedience. All right. So you're going to obey the top-down control, which comes from governing body, the faithful and discreet slave, the brothers in Christ that are the spokespeople, the modern prophet. Okay. And even if they're imperfect, you're going to follow it because Christ trusts them. So you're going to follow their direction. And then we're going to give you a job to do, and you must carry that job out precisely. No deviation. So here it is. It's a series of double binds. And the recent one that I decided to focus in on, just because it's repeated again and again, is child abuse in the form, not of CSA, but of corporal punishment. So that came up during July throughout the planet. So there was that direction in the Christian life and ministry, which was now issuing to all the various jurisdictions, all the various different countries, whereas maybe in the United States there are different laws that are applicable. But in a place like Ireland, the corporal punishment is off the table. It can't be done. And so I had, whether you want to say providentially or whether I had a very astute, and I believe they are very astute, Irish police spend a lot of time with me. And I'm going, well, why is this happening? What is this? And when, of course, the police revealed what their speciality focus is, their speciality focus is not just on, let's say, these companies like Lepta or Minor and, you know, these various companies which are controlling assets that are instrumentalities that are used by Jehovah's Witnesses. If you follow the linkages and you follow who's been assigned to that, I realize that, oh, this is somebody that I have worked with incredibly closely in Ireland to incredible degree, and the Irish police has traced through one way or another, whether it's instinctive, whether it's intuitive, or whether it's more complex than that. They've gone, Matt, we want to spend some time with you. What's the issues? What do you mean, what's the issues? Now, we want to talk to you about what are some of the things that you are facing, because we have concerns, or we work with protecting children, number one. That is our primary concern. We want to make sure that children are protected and vulnerable people are protected. And I'm going, oh, well, that's great. I'm so appreciative that you're giving me the time of day, and you're spending not just 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, you're spending as much time as is necessary to interview me with whatever I can sort of provide in my version of truth, or in what I believe is the truth, or what I have observed. And I don't mind you tearing it to pieces or questioning it, or, you know, making me accountable and responsible for what comes out of my mouth, you know?
Right.
So that was done.
I need to have a question acknowledged. Now, I asked you to give an example of how everything is your fault when something goes wrong, and now we're talking about the police. So I'm asking you a question. The Irish police that you're talking about, saying that they have concern over the protection of children or their welfare, do these Irish police officers that you're referring to, are they working with concern out of Jehovah's Witness children, or are they aware that they're talking about a Jehovah's Witness children?
They are aware I am a Jehovah's Witness, and their concern is children. So are
Children
Jehovah's
doing the
Witness children
Watchtowers?
there? Yes, it would come under that umbrella.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So now to finish the question, because I launch into the complexity,
Mm-hmm.
so that it might make things a little bit more difficult for viewers or listeners. But where is the double bind? Where is the fault now? How is it my fault? Okay. So governing body Jeffrey Jackson says to the ARC, Australia Royal Commission, he says corporal punishment is off the table, folks. And of course, we can see what his exact words are. So is that a direction to the organization? Is that a direction to the religion and to the community that is global or planetary that is being preached to? Because, hey, the governing body is the authority. They're saying if you want to be saved, then you've got to comply with the theocracy as we are telling you, as we give you instructions. That's our job under this government or this administration or kingdom. Yeah, kingdom administration. If you comply with that, you're going to live. If you don't, when we die, we're going to kill you off for not complying. And it's serious. That's the life-saving work that all of the Jehovah's Witnesses are involved in. Yeah. That they've got to now warn people, otherwise there's blood on their hands. So, hey, get to it and start telling people to comply with the rules and the regulations. And number one, Australia Royal Commission, just one of these rules is don't hit your kid. Find another way, or don't hit your child, find another way to discipline the child. And he went into an extensive explanation to the ARC under oath. And was this apostate information, Anne-Marie? No, it was not apostate information. It was information that was brought to service desk attention. Service desk personnel were told, well, take a look at how brilliant the testimony is of Jeffrey Jackson. He's under pressure. What a wonderful shepherd he is, folks. We can now learn tremendously from him. He's our modern day Paul. He's our modern day apostle, or one of the apostles in the modern sense, aspiring to follow the pattern scripturally and take a feather out of his cap and apply it in the way that you administer your duties and responsibilities in service desk, because there's the leadership that Christ has put confidence in. So that is what we are given. And so we know that wasn't top secret. It wasn't off limits for people. It may not have been to all of the community's awareness because it didn't come through perhaps jw.org with a loud trumpet and get that kind of attention. But for the key personnel that were serving interests of the region, and I'm saying service desk, circuit overseers, branch committee level, governing body, they're absolutely aware of this information. So it's not apostate information. So now, with that awareness and being given that awareness, if you have been given some sort of custodianship as an elder, or with authority to make sure that information control is carried out accurately from top to the bottom, if you look at it as a pyramid system of influence, or they say from the head of the fish down to the tail, then it means a submissiveness and obedience to complying with that kind of direction. And deviation from that is going to create a problem. You're going to be standing on your own without the support of the worldwide congregation, without the support of legal department, without the support of the branches and all the various instrumentalities which have been set up to, what can I say, make a religion function the way it is and have persons practice that religion according to free speech and according to freedom of worship. If they've chosen to be a Jehovah's Witness, then they should be allowed to do that. That's what the whole battle's been in the past 140 years, to Nazi Germany, to Malawi, to whatever kind of conflict there has been in shutting down Jehovah's Witnesses, even to Russia and all of this. The whole idea hinges on freedom to practice worship, whether it's right or wrong. That's supposed to be the human right. But now, when there is a catch-22 situation or a double bind, because the instruction has come down to the congregation in a way that is creating potential liabilities, then that's a different matter. Then it's now becomes very combative, it becomes very toxic. And so somebody that now takes action to apply the information from anybody from like Jeffrey Jackson, then gets into trouble, doesn't realize that they don't have the support of the congregation like they thought they did. So their monies, their efforts, their energies, it's for moot. It doesn't exist. So it becomes a deception. It becomes something that is a very, very rude awakening, and that is harmful to those involved. They're stepping into a landmine or on landmines that they have no idea about.
This is
What was it?
That is so true, Matthew.
So now whose fault is it? You asked that question. Well, according to local congregation, the fault is not even spoken, because what's my responsibility? My responsibility is to submit to the superior authorities, which act as God's minister according to doctrine. That's what's taught. So if there's somebody harmed, child or even a parent or a guardian who thinks that they're doing what's right, and the next thing a school hears from a child, mommy, daddy hit me, or my guardian hit me, or something like this. Well, guess what? The police, by law, have to investigate that. Now you've got a big, complicated situation. And when they investigate it, they come to the parent or the person who administered the discipline, and they've got to explain themselves. And they say, oh yeah, well, we were told that that's an important, godly, God's kingdom directive. That's what it is. And we've always made these kind of stands. Ask my congregation. And the congregation goes, we don't know who this person is.
Yep.
We don't know who they are. And you're going, sorry, I'm confused. And they're going, yeah, you're a rebel. Or if the congregation, say for instance, now it's on record because it's gone over Zoom and it's been transcribed, or you've got witnesses, you've got persons who are going, hang on a second, this doesn't make any sense. Then the branch policy could be to say, well, that's a renegade satellite congregation, let's cut it off. We'd rather cut it off and say, no, they acted independently. They're claiming to be Jehovah's Witnesses, but it's a kind of fraud. And they disassociated themselves when they took it upon themselves to break the law. And that has happened in South Africa since 1948 with a renegade Watchtower organization from Cape to Congo. I mean, that has happened. And Watchtower, Pennsylvania, and New York has had to send in personnel. I think of George Phillips, for instance, who was sent in here to convince South Africa government, no, this militant Watchtower that has risen up, that's using our literature, it's disassociated from Watchtower, Bible and Tract Society, Pennsylvania, and New York. No, it's acting upon its own ways. But what is missing from that information is that, well, how did this happen to begin with? It happened in the late 1800s when missionaries were sent to Africa to say, well, let's indoctrinate individuals with this information. And we've now got cheap labor and we've got access to mining shares and things like this. Let's protect those shares and get the return back, because we're nice, faithful slaves that are taking the mine, or we're taking the coin of small value, and we are coming back to the master and saying, well, look what we've invested. Isn't this brilliant? We've invested all of this, and
May I ask a question? I'm trying to follow you, and I'm obviously not as intelligent as you, but I'm working on it.
Oh, no.
Are you saying that back in the 1800s, the Watchtower sent missionaries from the Watchtower to recruit people into the organization because they had shares in Africa? I know there are diamond mines in Africa. Could you clarify that particular point that you just talked about?
Okay, so we can only clarify with what's in print. So we have to go back to old yearbooks, and now I'm having to go by memory, and I don't have a computer brain. But I would imagine something like 1976 yearbook or other yearbooks would be a lead to find out about Nyasa land and to find out what happened in the late 1800s and how the name Watchtower became a dirty word in Africa. And for a long time, I used to think when indigenous population was calling Jehovah's Witnesses Watchtower and saying, no, we're not Watchtower, we're Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, Pennsylvania, and it's an instrumentality. They say, no, we know what we're talking about. You guys are Watchtower. And they are recalling through oral tradition that you had the indigenous African population who were seeing how the indoctrination was undoing, let's say, African spirituality or African psychology or mindset. And what that was doing was it was saying, okay, well, let's make sure Africa, which is rich in minerals and gold and diamonds, whatever, lithium, even rare earth metals. Let's make sure that never competes with, say, for instance, gold bullion that we're keeping in reserves that are index linked or tied towards the
Okay,
US
two
dollar.
questions. You're losing me. Two questions. Was Watchtower recruiting or doing their occult recruiting work in Africa, and did they have shares in some of the riches in Africa is what I'm trying to nail in. Is that what you kind of referred to, basically, as far as you know?
You're wanting a definitive link. So it gets very ambiguous. All we can see...
Never mind. Go ahead. Just go ahead, sweetheart.
Sorry, Anne-Marie. Sorry, ask your question.
You kind of made reference, which made me think that you were alluding to at least the possibility that Watchtower had sent recruiters to recruit people from Africa or South Africa to the organization because they had interest in, like, the mining, the minerals, the riches of Africa. I asked you, is that what you meant? And can you give, like, kind of talk a little further? I didn't expect you to have a computer brain or remember exactly, but obviously you know a lot more than I do and many of us. So I'm just asking you the best that you can, if you don't mind.
Okay. All right. And if there's gaps or whatever, I'll try and fill it in later on or at a later stage. Let's make an outline.
Yeah.
So let's go, take the clock back, late 1800s. If you had a missionary or, your 1,000 porteurs, somebody that was serious about getting involved, they could sell up their house and then they could buy shares. I don't know, was it $1 or $10 or something like this at the time? I can't remember. But you could buy shares quite easily. All right, so you're saying, oh, well, I'm putting my confidence into that system. And why would you want to do that? Well, you could avoid tax, for instance. You could do that. So you're showing confidence towards the teachings, but also you're benefiting from a system that's able to, give certain tax breaks and certain benefits at the time. So, yeah. So it's like setting up a public benefits organization or what can I say, charitable organization. You can do that. It could be in anything. It could be in religion. It could be in art. It could be in wildlife conservation, whatever. You can do that, and you can get certain breaks. So it made sense for some to sell up and to beat the problem with a high interest account. So like Charles Russell was told, what you should do, don't take your haberdashery money and slap it into a high interest account. That's not going to work for you. Slap it into something like an oil well or land or, coal or, something that is going to beat devaluation, because that whole economic structure, the only way that it can work is with reset, like Jubilee years and things like this. Otherwise, you're going to have all kinds of problems with the economic system, because it gets to a saturation point and it implodes upon itself. So in order to avoid that situation, just if you don't want to get involved with this, Russell, just follow what the big boys are doing. When we buy into oil, you do the same. Don't put it into a higher interest account. So those kind of benefits were being put into extra Watchtower publications. So I suppose, imagine something like 2 Watchtowers a month. Well, if you had shares, you'd get the 3rd Watchtower. Okay, right? Does that make sense, or I'm losing you? So the 3rd Watchtower would have instructions on, what to do to invest wisely. You'd be in the in crowd, because it would be telling you do what Russell does. Anne-Marie?
Wow.
Am I still with you, or did I lost you?
I may be lost, Matthew, but you didn't lose me. No, okay. Matthew, you are amazing. You are amazing. Because, there is so much that the Watchtower has kept from us. That's why I love Luke 8:17 so much. For there is nothing hidden that will not become manifest, nor anything carefully concealed that will never become known and not come out in the open. And that's in their own New World Translation. And just like Rick said, and just like you're pointing out, and the new lady that has that wonderful show, Justice for All, you know what?
Okay.
It's coming out. It's coming out. And I've heard Watchtower has so many sneaky doors, and then you go in that door, and then you find out there are more sneaky doors going down deeper to more sneaky stuff. They're sneaky.
Sure. It's very, very sophisticated, but it's also easy to justify it, and it's also, it doesn't always necessarily have a nefarious aspect. The nefarious aspect is you may not be included on that information. So by information control, that creates an artificial authority structure. So
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah,
there's a good way to put it.
Maybe I need to give pop culture references. Do you ever know a film with Robert Redcliffe called Sneakers?
I heard Robert Redcliffe, but I don't know what you're referring to, my dear.
So sneakers like the shoes, but also sneakers like operatives.
Oh, yeah. I remember the movie. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Absolutely.
So the main antagonist was the same actor who acted as Gandhi. So he's in there, and he explains in the film that money isn't the key thing. It's the information control. And he gives an illustration.
Yeah.
Okay.
Could you tell us more about South Africa? Because most of us don't know what the witnesses have done in South Africa or other parts of Africa. And I've always wondered, because it seems like they're all over the continent and we don't really hear the truth about it. Now, Russell did own the turpentine concerns in South America, but this is the first I've heard about mines.
So as
So as the organization grew internationally, it looked towards Africa because, I mean, you could go into, there was even territories I went into where there was just diamonds on the ground. You could pick them up, but it was tribal trust lands, territory, right? So, and the same for gold. And you knew that there's very strict rules and regulations about this thing. Even if you pick it up off the ground, you're going, oof, man, if the chiefs find out about this, you're going to be in for a tremendous amount of trouble. I knew that in those kind of territories. And then, unfortunately, during, I don't know, the economic meltdown or whatever, people became desperate and they just went into those areas and, you know, cleaned up this mineral wealth that was just lying on the top of the ground. You don't even dig into the ground, it's on the top of the ground. So if that was happening in you know, 2000s to present, you can imagine how rich Africa was. Nyasaland, Cape Town, all the way to Congo. And where did Cecil John Rhodes arrive? He arrives in the Nyasaland area and puts together this big, massive mining consortium from Cape to, you can say Cape to Cairo, essentially, but going up to Congo. And that whole thing was to now target, or the British targeted custodians of knowledge. So if you want to say African scientists or African custodians of knowledge, whether it's from medicine to human nature, they identified those ones who were keepers of oral tradition and keepers of names and family lineages, and they essentially killed them. I'll give you a quote: Nabuya Nyahanda and Kaguvi in Nyasaland. The British targeted them and killed them. And the whole system of information transference, because it wasn't written down, was orally and through a kind of spiritual initiation. If you use something like Iboga, you could, or the extract Ibogaine, which is modern, but if you used Iboga, for instance, you could get a firing up of your synapses or your brain, or however your mind works, wherever that is, and have your out-of-body experiences, but a connection into, I suppose, if you talk about Eastern things, Akashic records, or if you want to use a biblical term, scrolls of records of deeds. You could now accurately bring back memories from people, even their experiences in the room with Iboga, for instance. I mean, that was what Taka Zulu was doing with his impis and making them feel immune from death because they were having out-of-body experiences. And that's when Watchtower says, okay, don't touch these drugs because that's taboo, that's spiritistic. But that was the culture. That was the way that the information was sent down generationally, and it was preserved so that you had thousands of years of information going from father to son or mother to daughter, or in matriarchal and patriarchal lineages. That was how it was done. That's not top secret. And Malawi will tell you this right now. That's why they were a target, because they were eating just a cabbage coming out, growing on the ground, or a root in the ground, which is their food, and it was waking up their brains. That was why they were a problem. So they got fed to the crocodiles. So they, what's it, 1960, they said, British control, it surrenders control, but they never got independence. They never got economic independence. That was just another way of control, because now they owe the World Bank. They get all these loans and the power goes to their heads, or they put in their agents for political power, but it's still under control, and the people think, oh, well, we've got independence. No, we don't. No such thing. And that's exactly what happened throughout Africa. The various companies got set up to control the people, and they're still in servitude. You say to a Malarian, oh, what do you guys do? Oh, I'm in the mines. Great. Where's that minerals going? Oh, no, it's being exported. Oh, right. So you don't actually have gold currency to support this country here, this tremendous wealth. You don't have it to support your own independence. No, we don't, because we don't know what to do with it. Why? Because the minds haven't been educated correctly. And then the guys who do wake up and are still using traditional medicines, and they're going, oh man, we can't expose this thing. We just get labeled lunatics and all of this sort of story. We are trying to appeal to the African people. For goodness sake, when are you going to realize that the missionaries that were sent in, whether it's SDA, Mormon, Jehovah's Witnesses, whatever missionaries came in waving a Bible around, that was there to indoctrinate you to our control systems so that we could get rid of the minerals that were just lying all over the place that anybody could pick up, and that was going to threaten the Western economic system.
Wow.
Sorry, I'm getting out of hand on it. Okay, I'll take it down a notch. Sorry.
That's heavy duty. I don't know any of us.
They're absorbing this. Pixie, you're ahead of the curve here. Am I making sense, or
No, you make sense. It's just, I was just thinking that if
In the newsroom, we used to call that a scoop. That's the best damn paragraph I've heard in 2 years.
Oh, well, thanks, Pixie.
The book that you might want to read is Undoing Yourself. It's the same publisher as Prometheus Rising. You are so on target with things that are new to me. Just keep telling us stuff. And what was that book last night that you mentioned about mental health?
Oh, that was Jason Reza Georgiani. But you had another book that was on Prometheus. I took a note of it. I don't have my notes in front of me. But
Prometheus Rising. It's a $12 paperback. Prometheus Rising, and the same publisher has Undoing Yourself. But you sound like you are totally about the good part of your soul and self anyway. You've enlightened us so much with the true purpose of the missionaries.
The problem is that if you talk about this now, you've got to be very careful, because everyone has the right to develop spiritually and freedom of speech. So as soon as you talk about it, go, oh, well, you're insulting my religion. You go, no, this isn't my purpose. I'm just telling you the history. You can say that there's good players and you've got bad players. There's the sacred and the profane, and they mix together. But the profane hides behind the sacred.
Well, I've always thought that that's why they got rid of all the dancers in the cultures of the world, the dancers, the puppeteers in Cambodia. All of these indigenous practitioners had a divine link personally. They didn't need a priest or a Christian.
Right. So that's what happened to me, Pixie. But I thought that was the truth of the truth, because Rhodesia was isolated from the rest of the world. So as Jehovah's Witnesses developed, it was kind of like an artificial bubble. It was similar to Russia. So you had an underground of Jehovah's Witnesses with camaraderie and hiding literature and all sorts of things, and getting sent to prison, and wound up together with Mugabe in prison. And Mugabe was a Jesuit. He was a trained Jesuit, and so you had this amalgamation that was going on. What was it? Ron Hubbard was learning his, fundamentals of which became Dianetics in Rhodesia. That I served in his territories, because you think about persons like, who can I think? Pat Price, or you think about persons like. We'll take Pat Price, for instance. So just start there. They knew that the sacred areas in controlling the world, and I was assigned to a place called Chipinge, which when you translate it is control, and that's where Zimbabwean politicians were coming. Why? Because they would be instructed according to the ancestors as to what to do next, because there was this huge upheaval called the Chimurenga due to the killing of the spiritual leaders, like you said, the dancers. And when you speak in Tao, which is like a poetic form of Shona, and you give a greeting, you say Magadi, instead of the mainstream Shona, they would say Kutamba, which is we are dancing. It's exactly what you said, because the whole initiation would get into a trance state, beating of a drum, synchronize your heartbeat, you're connected to earth, air, fire, the same ceremonies, funnily enough, that you see in the annual general meeting, or that was in the last year's annual general meeting. You had that patterning that was going on there. And some people are saying, no, what are you talking about? You're just making these kind of connections. But it's a psychology that's in humans from east to west. It's a pattern that you can identify in all of these various. Are you still with me? Sorry. Hello.
I'm here. Keep rolling.
Thanks, Pixie. Sorry, did I go blank? I never know if I get cut off or not.
Well, what you're saying and what you're sharing is quite interesting, as Pixie has very well verified.
Yeah, so going into the trance state, if you want to talk about controlled hypoxia, you can enter into an altered state like that, or just eating the food that's in the area. Or I can't be categorical. I can't tell you why something happens, but if you're having a mystical experience, and I would report it and say to service desk, oh, this is happening, that's happening, that's happening. Yes, it goes into the reporting system, but anything that is to do with growth, it took me a while to recognize this, but anything that threatened the authority system, they would shut it down. Okay, so I'm making those reports. Now, in those areas, they're going, what mystical thing are you talking about? What experience? We all experience this. There's nothing special about what you're experiencing. In our society, this is a rite of passage. This is exactly how everything works. And this is why the politicians come here to this area, because they're given the instruction with this heightened consciousness or this heightened awareness. That's why it's like this. This is why we've got stones erected here like Stonehenge, and it's connected by ley lines, and we've got the guys chanting on the hills, and it's connecting with the spiritual lines or the mystical lines or the you know, if you want to say subconscious or deeper things. And when I talk about this awareness or different, I talk about telepathy, tele-empathy or remote empathy. Now that can be a real taboo word. But if you think of primal gaze detection, somebody's looking behind you, Anne-Marie or Pixie, you're going to turn around and go, hey, who's staring at me? Now, is that a subtle thing that happens? Or what is it that resonates inside your brain or inside your senses or in your mind or whatever, your consciousness is telling you that somebody's staring at you from behind and you make eye contact with them? What is that? So US government knew a long time ago that they wanted to amplify those abilities, because somebody said, look, they're doing this in Russia. You better start developing these abilities or Russia is going to get ahead of you. You're going to lose control of the situation, because information is power. And so they set up through SRI the Stargate program. So the Stargate program isn't, you know, L. Ron Hubbard's there in Rhodesia and he's gathering information from the locals, and eventually he gets kicked out because they're saying, no, we don't like what you're doing here. It looks like you're going to try and take control of the territories. This is what you're doing. This is our determination, whether that's right or wrong. And L. Ron Hubbard was trying to develop a new form of psychology, and he presented to the psychological circles, and they said, no, we don't like this at all because it stepped on taboos, or scientism at the time, which is a form of religion. And they said, no, we're not going to allow this, because if you do that, it dismantles the governmental control systems which are keeping people in line, which we will say is for the motive of preventing humans' darker nature overshadowing their light nature and cutting this planet in half. We've already done or had to deal with the likes of Einstein. We don't want too many of those, thank you very much. Look what happened with the atom bomb. We nearly ignited our atmosphere, for goodness sake. Let's not do that again, thank you very much. You know, bad enough. So the whole idea is to try and keep the planet from cutting itself into pieces. And so L. Ron Hubbard, he produces Dianetics and Scientology, but a lot of that knowledge went to United States Congress, and United States Congress says, okay, put together your think tank, choose the army, they're going to be disciplined, put them under non-disclosure agreements. It's all been declassified now. But they gather these persons, some were Scientologists or ex-Scientologists, some were Buddhist, and some were in Jewish Kabbalah, and you know, all of these various things. So if you're thinking, oh, is it all controlled by Freemasons and Jesuits? Yeah. These are just labels. The practices have existed since antiquity. Okay, so when you see that, it kind of dismantles the sensationalism, and it just goes, okay, well, these are the thoughts in whatever country you're in or whatever language group that you're in. The same imagery or the same mechanisms are in place to advance human, what can I say, intuition, if you want to say spirituality, mystic powers, latent powers, your primal taste detection and amplifier, those kind of sensors. That is what the US government paid for. They're paying for this and saying, right, develop the Stargate program or Grill Flame program. And let's see if Russia is developing the bomb and it's getting out of hand, or if we can equalize it with mutual assured destruction or not, you see. So now Watchtower always wanted to have that. So where I came in, I could see, oh, these abilities, man, it's absolutely glorious. To increase these abilities, it's wonderful. But because I had been educated in the Jehovah's Witness framework, I'm equating it through scripture, and I'm equating it through magazines and all of that, and recalling this information and using the memory aid that was taught to Gilead students, the advanced memory aid, which was supposed to retain something like 60 to 80% of the information. And if you were exceptional, 90% of the information through Gilead umbrella, the 5-month program, the 10-month program, where if you look at the old society, look at the New World Society and action videos and things like that, you can make the link that they use.
Can you hear me? Hello? Can you hear me?
Am I with you? You've gone fuzzy?
Please, yes.
Is someone trying to speak?
Yeah, it's me. Listen, you're losing everybody in the chat. This has nothing to do with how to leave the Watchtower and follow Jesus. And everybody is ready to go to the next show, because this is something that can be covered on Matthew's personal YouTube channel. We don't really need a history of Africa right now. This is supposed to be about following Jesus.
I understand.
And I'm sorry if I sound rude.
I am very sorry. I'm very sorry about that. Yes.
It's okay. It's okay. Everybody in the chat is ready to go to the next show, because Matthew, most of us don't know what you're talking about. This could go on your personal YouTube channel. And I'm just speaking for several people, not just myself, that I'm not even following you.
I understand. Can I apologize to the audience, or can you do that for me? I'm very
Okay,
sorry
thank you,
about that.
Debbie.
That isn't my intention.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. Thank you so much, Matthew. We probably do need to go to JW World News Sunday edition. I'm sure a lot of people are waiting for it. We are
And
about
thanks to your audience for their patience, and my apologies for being out of hand.
We understand, Matthew. It's just a little too much for a Sunday show, okay? Thank you.
I understand. Thank you very, very much, and thanks to everybody for their patience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank
You
you,
answered
Dixie.
questions I've had for 20 years. Thank you. Bless you.
And my apologies to anybody that's been triggered. Very, very sorry. And
Well, Matthew, this is Rick Farron. Matthew, you don't have to apologize. My goodness gracious, you came on, you gave your story, and we enjoyed it. And I'll tell you what, you're from a different country, and obviously there's some differences. But geez, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your story with us, Matthew. And everyone has a voice here on the 6 screens. Thank you.
thank you, Rick, and a big appreciation for myself. Thank you very, very much. And for those that I have met, I'm very grateful. Thank you very much.
Uh-huh. And don't worry about triggering. Everybody's triggered by
Well, we can't make everybody happy, but I'll tell you what. No, Matthew, you're a very intelligent man. You have a lot of knowledge to share, and boy, I'll tell you what. Doing this program for 20 years, it's like amazing. But we hear from everybody, and we appreciate your voice here as well. Thank you, Matthew.
That means a lot.
Keep
Thank you, Rick.
dancing, Matthew. Keep dancing. Love you.
Okay, Pixie.
All righty, very good. Thank you, Matthew. Well, there you go. Well, Anne Marie, we got him on, and we got Steve. He wanted to come on too, but we'll give him next time on here. But we want to let everyone know we give everyone a voice, and sometimes what happens is Matthew's a very intelligent man. First of all, let's go with that. And he's trying to explain to us some of the things happening in Africa, and it's amazing. The Watchtower is a worldwide organization, and for someone to come and speak a little bit, so that's good. But I understand that it was a deep subject, but we appreciate having him on. Thank you, Anne Marie, and we're going to go to JW World News. That's coming up next. What would you like to say, Anne Marie, and close the program?
Well, I just want to thank everybody that was listening in. And again, if anybody was triggered, we're sorry, but we all have our little sunburn spots, as Dr. Phil would say. But you know what? I really appreciate Matthew giving us a glimpse in an area of Watchtower nastiness, evilness, whatever. What they did in Africa, the little tiny bit that we did know, now, according to Matthew, was just the tip of the iceberg. They're very sneaky, very manipulative, and straight up evil. And I was hoping in the back of my mind that Matthew maybe could have a show maybe once a month or something, because he is obviously privy to a lot of knowledge that we are probably not aware of. Just an idea. But thank everyone for listening. Thank you for future listeners. Today is October 5th, 2025. The show is Eskimo with Witnesses Share their Watchtower story, or whatever the story was connected with Watchtower. This is the time for it. Every 2 weeks, you go to this now and JW World News Sunday Edition. Rick?
Well, thank you, Anne Marie. So let's go to the news and bring you right up to speed on what's going on behind the curtains of the Watchtower. But before we do that, let me just... we're going to go live. Let me make sure the other program is off first. Let me make sure we're going to end this program. So we're going to end that program. So we end that program.